VSiN, the sports betting network.
Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Here we go. Welcome in. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the sports betting network. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard with you live in downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. Crazy busy show lined up all the way until 8 o'clock Eastern time, taking you into right into this massive Thursday night game between the Packers and the Lions. Paul Charchian on the show, among our guests, coming up in 30 minutes, and he has a ton of opinions on the game tonight with player props, Paulie, which we'll get to throughout the show today as well. So they just met not that long ago. Detroit went to Green Bay. That was a rain-soaked field at Lambeau that day. Jordan Love was far from great. The Lions had a 17-3 lead at halftime, and basically they didn't do anything for the rest of the game. They did take care. It was never really a contest. Green Bay never really had a chance to come back and win that game. But when you look at the overall yards and yards per play, it was all Green Bay. Goff only threw like 22 passes in the game. And, of course, I've heard a lot of chatter about this. A year ago, last week on Thanksgiving, the Packers went there as an 8.5-point dog, jumped on them early, never looked back, and won the game outright 29-22. And a lot of people are suggesting that has a lot, they're factoring that into tonight. I would not do that. I just think that the Lions are so decimated by injury that the Packers are live here to win this game.
Yeah, and to me, it screams under because both teams need to pound the ball, and especially Green Bay. With a great rushing offense, top 5 in the league, you have to attack this defense and you have to attack the linebackers.
I would agree.
And see what you have here and feed Jacobs. That's number one. And still, I don't know if I trust Love the way he's been playing, although he was great on Thanksgiving. It is odd that the road team has won 4 in a row here, head-to-head, in a tough stretch with 3 games in 12 days for these teams. But one's won 10 in a row, and the other one's won 7 of 8. And the loss, of course, you mentioned Detroit, was misleading. They blew them out, and then there was some garbage points late from the Packers out in the elements. So number one is the under. He's got to be a lot of Jacobs in this one, too. And the other thing is I think it's going to be a tight game. I don't think under 14.5 points, largest lead, is the way to go. And a key point with the under, both teams need to establish the run. You also have 2 very aggressive coaches, especially in the red zone. We saw what LaFleur did in the Chicago game. 4th and goal from the 5, he went for it?
Yeah.
So I think you're going to get a couple drives here that take time off the clock and you come away empty with 0.
Well, Campbell might also, at any point in the game, backed up at his own 22-yard line, fake a punt. And if they get it, that keeps the drive alive, and they have a lot of fuel in front of them at that point. Mm-hmm. You don't know. He's a wild card when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, the concern about Love, and he's up to $1. He's in Winston territory now. Will he throw an interception?
Oh, yeah.
He's $1.60. So can he play clean football? Your point about what happened on Thanksgiving should have been a blowout. They had the fumble. Lions didn't put him away, and they almost got beat. But if Love has one of those Will Levis plays again, like he did against Detroit, and like he continues to do, then they're going to lose this game. But if you pound it on the ground with Jacobs, Zach Cohen put me on the Kraft longest reception over, which is, I think, on a 7-4 run, over 15.5. Without Dobbs, you think he'd be a big target here as well. And I would just have to take the 3.5 here at Circa, but a stronger recommendation on the under.
Yeah, so my feeling on this and how I think maybe potential game flow might unwind between these two teams. So to break it all down, the Lions officially have 11 defensive players on IR. They have recently had practice squad players elevated to get into games to fill in. So on top of that, with the countless guys there, 3 defensive linemen are also out of this game, including DJ Reader, who is massive when it comes to stopping the run. And that game flipped on Thanksgiving Day when Rodriguez, their linebacker who's playing really well, went out of the game. And the Bears capitalized on that, and that's how they got back into the contest. So my feeling on this is also Ben Johnson and the Lions on offense, they like to get pass happy once in a while. There's no offensive, Taylor Decker's out tonight, offensive lineman for the Lions. However, it is still elite, and they still have top. It depends on what numbers you look at in metrics. They're either number 1 or number 2 in almost every rushing category. So I was thinking to myself, well, this is going to be a Gibbs and or Montgomery game. And then rather than trying to figure out which one of the two I wanted to bet over, I decided to go with this bet. And that is Jared Goff passing attempts under because I don't think you can be pass happy in this game. And if it's not working, you're going to give the ball right back to Green Bay. I just told you how many guys are missing on defense. 11 guys on IR, plus other guys, including 3 defensive linemen out for this game tonight. You don't want Green Bay to have the ball back against a defense that might not be able to slow them down. I think you have to just run the ball tonight against the Packers defense and try to keep them off the field. So I'm going to go Goff under 32.5 passing attempts. That's my biggest probably breakdown of the entire game.
Now, what do we do with Laporta?
I think you got to go over on him.
He's 9-2 to the under with receptions, but Green Bay struggles against tight ends.
That's the point, yes.
So that's a tough one, too. St. Brown is plus 250 to have 100 yards at DK.
They're good against receivers, though.
Yeah. But is it Reed? Is it Watson? What happens for Green Bay with Dobbs out? And they are aggressive taking shots down the field. I don't know if I can trust Watson. He can't catch a cold.
No, you can't trust him. His prop is way too high for me to go on the over. So the one guy to look at would be Jaden Reed. He had 113 yards the first time they played. However, at this point, if you missed it, I don't think you can get involved because, yes, it's only in the low 60s right now. Jaden Reed's prop, and I'm looking at the betting picks on VSiN.com. Host John Hansen here on VSiN, who does the show, 2 shows before us here, before Adam Shine, and Dustin Sweetelson, they locked in Jaden Reed like 46.5, 48.5. Dobbs was officially ruled out after that. This thing jumped to like 61.5 in the game tonight. So he might have 100 again. I don't know, but I don't really feel like hopping in that I've missed 13 yards now on that prop. But I think he would be the guy anyway because, let's face it, the weak spot on the Lions, and they're getting a couple of guys back in the secondary tonight, so this could change. But the weak spot in that secondary is how they've been against wide receiver ones this year. They are second worst in DVOA against the position, and they're allowing 95.7 yards per game to wide receiver number 1. So they held Mike Evans to 42 yards all the way back in week 2. Godwin went crazy in that game. Since then, other receivers against the Lions, Calvin Ridley, 10 for 143. Cooper Kupp, this is in week 1, 14 for 110 and a touchdown. DK Metcalf had 7 for $104. DJ Moore, 8 for 97 and a touchdown. Keenan Allen scored twice last week. Michael Pittman, 6 for 96. CeeDee Lamb, 7 for 89. Justin Jefferson, 7 for 81 and a touchdown. So to me, I think it's good. And Reed's like the go-to guy anyway in the offense. So I think it's going to be him. I just hate chasing that missed number.
How about the Gibbs discussion?
What do you do here?
I don't know. It's something to monitor early. I saw Ben Johnson's press conference about it's not a big deal, and he made the comment kind of like what Rich Gannon said. Maybe they did it on purpose, which I can't believe. But for him to put that on social media on the whiteboard with the code words behind him on pass protection, I don't know. Dan Campbell wasn't happy about it. And then came back and said, well, if we can't beat teams and that's the reason why we lose, then we're not that good anyways. But that's something to monitor and watch early on as well. How about if I'm wrong and it's under 14.5, it goes over? Both quarterbacks are 3-1 to throw for 300 yards.
Oh, at that point.
We've had some nice runs here in prime time games.
Sure.
I mean, if you get the situation where some team's behind and then they're letting it loose. I mean, I don't mind Love over, though, even though I think it's under. But if the game goes under, but if somebody falls behind, then that's out the window. And then
I would totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think here's the angle on that. Because the Lions, they can't afford to lose any of these games.
You got the Bills next.
And they want the 1 seed. They want to win the division. So my thought on that is this. If that's the team that falls behind by a couple of scores, you need to be looking at the live player props and get involved. Then I would be wrong. I'm going to be dead wrong on the Goff passing attempts. And then I'd look to get out of it and maybe see if I could find a number on that. Or maybe that's when you want to hop in on Laporta and somebody else with the receiving yards over live in the game. Flip side, I mean, that's where it's going to be all love probably. And they might have to abort the idea of going to Jacobs. Can they get back into the game running the football? Maybe if the gut of the Lions defense is that weak with that many guys out of the game tonight.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the turnovers, though. And we mentioned it all year, how opportunistic Green Bay is. They're 5th in takeaways, Detroit's 7th, and Green Bay's +9 and Detroit's +8 in the turnover margin. So whoever plays clean football is going to win. And that's why I'm pointing the finger at Love. And again, he's in Winston territory here. With $1.60 to throw a pick.
Yeah,
that'll
really
decide the game.
That's really saying something right there.
Yeah. Octopus, 13-1.
We've seen that recently.
Get in there. How about Goff with a sneak from the 1-yard line? 15-1 anytime touchdown.
Oh, boy.
Not enough?
Oof.
Is 3 enough, good enough for 300 yards? Or do you want more? Is that not enough for you? I think that's pretty good.
Well, I need to know the game script, though. I need to know, like, if they fall. If you're telling me right now it's going to be 17-0, like if it's last year's game on Thanksgiving, yes, absolutely, then it's probably good.
That's right.
To your point about tight ends against Green Bay, how about Jonnu Smith last week? Was he good?
Yes.
He had 10 for $113. Could have had more.
Feeding him. Yeah,
I know. Kittle the week before had 6 for 82 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Parkinson for the Rams had 7 for 52. McBride 8 for 96. Ingram scored against him. That's in the first meeting. Laporta only had 2 catches for 28 yards. But again, the Lions never really tried to throw the ball in that game. And so I think that's kind of going to be the play again tonight. Now, if they get the lead, if the Lions are the team to get out to the lead that we're talking about here, then I'm quite confident the Goff attempts are going to go under, and then Gibbs and Montgomery will probably both go over with their rushing attempts anyway. But I don't know who to. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but the Packers are really good guarding wide receivers, and Laporta did nothing. So I don't know. I'm just going to go with the Goff thing and stick with it. Yeah. I do think 3.5 might be a touch high, though.
Yep. And 2 units up, by the way. 2-unit play. Both teams to make 33-yard field goals. $1.05 down the street.
$1.05.
That's a good price.
And you mentioned the largest lead under, right?
Yeah, 14.5.
14.5. Yeah, I would concur with that one.
It should be tight, but it's you don't see this. You don't see this in December where 3 teams in the same division have this record.
No, it doesn't happen.
And then the battle where Philly's right there for the 1 seed, and then Buffalo comes to town coming up next week.
Well, how many times do we have 3 teams alive for the 1 seed? Because the Vikings technically still are.
Yeah.
You know? Up next, win some, lose some, and you'll hear an incredible soundbite from SMU coach Rhett Lashley. You'll hear this and say to yourself, you know what? He's absolutely right.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Thursday on Follow the Money, a huge game in the NFL between the Lions and Packers. Picks and props and fantasy with Paul Charchian. What to do with all these teams on bye. Brad Powers, all the conference title games, and the meat man on soccer. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
last night?
Wow, winning.
Or was it a rough one?
Well, they can't all be winners, can they?
Loser! You're a loser!
Paulie Howard recaps the night in sports betting in Win Some, Lose Some.
Great job, Hagen. College basketball, betting teams that won a a tournament, coming back home first half, beautiful. Incredible performance. Thanks to Hagen for pointing that out, and I believe all those won last night. More on that coming up. Well done. It's a great angle I never thought of. And always email ftm@vsin.com. He put the work in that had gone 12-1-1, and it certainly delivered last night, and it's always something to monitor and keep an eye on moving forward. 76ers Magic over 204 to 211. Fell 208. Magic from 2 up to 6. Won by 4. The Heat from 1.5 to 3.5. Oh, boy. They beat the Lakers 134 to 93.
Now, what happened there?
Worthy was disgusted. They're 27th in defense. They didn't compete. And I think I saw 38 uncontested shots they allowed. Something like that.
I know this. The game was over in the first quarter.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
I think at one point, did Hero hit 7 straight threes?
Magic. LeBron, though, delivered points at least.
That was good. Needed that.
Maryland from 3 up to 6. No problem. Bounced Ohio State. Central Connecticut State, 10-point dogs, 4-1 on the money line. VCU, 17.5 up to 20. Won by 35. Subscribe, be part of the team, VSiN.com, our radio and podcast friends. You always want to see these tweets and videos at Paulie Does Vegas on Instagram. Send them in, play along. This is great. Where I give them the grated cheese. Unleash hell. Are you ready? Are you? It's spat
Holy
up.
smokes.
You're dropping all the grated cheese in front of the dog, and you don't see it on the floor. No way. Devour that. That's a garbage disposal, baby.
Oh.
That is incredible.
That's the most impressive thing I'm going to see today.
That is great. Excellent. Dynamite. Lose some. Pacers, 1.5 up to 3.5. No good. Texas, NC State over, 144 up to 148. 63-59 final. Did you see how it finished? Texas, on a breakaway, dunked it at the gun, at the buzzer to put it on 4.
Oh, boy.
The kid didn't dribble it out. One bad beat. Baylor, plus 2.5 or plus 3. The Brent Musburger rule, was that Raftery who said it?
It was Raftery,
It was
yeah.
Raftery. Why are they shooting the free throws? The Brent Musburger rule.
And he goes, well, the Brent Musburger rule.
It's a 2-point game. They foul.
Game's over.
Game's over. They go back
and look.
They put 0.7 seconds left on the clock. UConn hits both free throws to cover, and it lands 4. Oh, my aching ass. How about it? That's win some, lose some. All right, some good audio here. You teased it. So this is good. This is heating up now. They can't do this to SMU. So there's some great comments here and quotes, and I love the analogy what Dan Wetzel said. First things first. Remember what Ward Manuel said Tuesday. What if Army and UNLV lose? Duke and Louisville then could jump into the top 25. Those are 2 teams that both Miami and SMU beat. Regarding Miami, he goes, no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's huge. But that also
no more data points, he said.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But that also affects SMU. SMU, again, you have to throw out strength of schedule because it's an unbalanced schedule, and you're making the top 25. Why is Missouri ranked? Why is Illinois ranked? Because you're protecting the SEC and the Big Ten? That's crazy. Why wasn't Duke ranked? Why wasn't Louisville ranked? SMU, 8 of their 11 wins were against teams that were either ranked or receiving votes at some point. Lashley's comment was, well, when we played them, they were ranked. We beat them. What are we supposed to do? Then they dropped out and couldn't get back in. Lashley, SMU head coach, on the Andy Staples On 3 podcast, asked about this scenario that they could lose and get left out.
If the worst happens this year, do you think coaches will start to consider doing crazy things like not playing or benching players or doing things?
If our team all got COVID today and didn't play, we're in.
Wow.
We're in, right? We don't have another data point to drop us below anybody that's behind us.
Based on what happened in 2020, that's how it would go. Yeah.
I think if you open up that door, you're going to see a lot of people do a lot of crazy things. Yes, we're not going to. We're going to go play in Charlotte, and we're going to try to compete for our championship because that's the right thing to do.
He's exactly right.
How about that? That hits home.
Yeah, he's right.
If if half the team came down with COVID, they said they can't play, the committee would have no choice but to keep them in.
Yeah.
They don't play in the game. They don't lose. Okay, well, there's no other data point. So we can't punish them, right? Players were ineligible to play that week. They're in.
How about what he said at the end? He's right about that, too. He knows. He talks to these guys. You're going to have players. They're going to sit players? I'm going to avoid the conference title game now. If it's going to be held against me. Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, had the best analogy. SMU, and we know who the best team is in the Mountain West. Boise already won at UNLV. Now they got to do it again? So Chris Massaro, our buddy, brought this up. Wetzel brought it up as well. Like if Boise loses by 3 points, why are they out? You're already telling us that Boise State and SMU are better because they're ahead of Alabama. They already won the race and won. But you're saying, no, run another lap. Why do I have to run another lap? You said I'm better. I already won the race. No, you have to win another lap and do it again. But Alabama gets to sit down? Yes. Why? Yep. That's how it is.
No, that's because they're called Alabama.
Yeah.
I brought that up on Monday's show. I said, okay, all this talk about SMU losing and they're going to be left out. I got one more for you. Same scenario for Boise State. Said it on Monday's show. If they lose, I don't care. Put them in. Put them in. If you want to keep UNLV out, I don't care. Or put them both in.
The first game doesn't matter. It's all about this now.
Right.
Yeah.
Why does this game tomorrow night mean more than what it did out here in Las Vegas when Boise won on the road? It shouldn't.
Yeah. The conference title game is a reward. You're playing the extra game as a reward. No way, no how, ever should it be held against you.
Of course.
It's just common sense. This is they're making it up as they go. And just to make it worse, that now, let's say SMU loses a close game, you could get, here comes Duke and Louisville in the top 25 as a result of other teams losing.
I'll give you one that's going to complete. This will cause outrage from coast to coast, except for the South. If Georgia loses by margin, they get blown out.
Yeah.
And they're still in the playoff, and SMU loses on a field goal at the gun, and they're left out for Alabama, don't even do a playoff anymore then. What's the point? Yeah. Like you've been saying all week, just separate and play SEC versus the Big Ten and make it. That's going to be the thing every single year.
Yeah. And that's here's Pat Forty. He wrote about that Tuesday, Sports Illustrated. Pat Forty was on the Dan Patrick show, asked about what he thought of Bama ahead of Miami, and he went with the Big Ten SEC angle.
I thought Miami got screwed. It's close. It's not like this is, the biggest travesty we've ever seen, but I would have had Miami ahead of Alabama. But we've seen historically, Alabama gets in, the SEC gets what it wants. Greg Sankey all but planted his flag in October saying this has to go incredibly well. And I think a lot of people took that as marching orders of we better get all of our teams in that deserve to get in, maybe even some that don't deserve to get in. I think the Alabama brand is so strong that losses for them seem to matter less. Certain wins even seem to matter more. It may just mean more. The thing the point where I thought not necessarily that the fix is in, but that they were excessively enamored with the Alabama brand was 2 weeks ago when they beat Mercer, an FCS team, and moved up 3 spots. They moved up 3 spots in the rankings by beating Mercer. Then they lose by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma. But Ward Manuel comes out and says, well, Miami wasn't playing well at the end. Was Alabama playing well? No.
That also is not part of the criteria. It's overall body of work. Who cares what happened in the last 3 games? And you get credit for beating Mercer? That's not part of the criteria. Yeah, they made that up. They made that up. It's supposed to be body of work.
Of course, they will make up anything to get these teams in.
Good job for Lashley. Good job. So, a lot of people were originally saying, I hope Clemson wins and root against. So they blocked these guys, but oh boy. That's going to be a tough one on Sunday to sit there and watch and take it. They're going to do that. I know we have a short attention span, but they just got their asses kicked 2 weeks ago against a bad team and scored 3 points. Come on now.
Yep. I know.
Good job. There's something there, though. There's definitely something there to watch out what coaches are going to do, the sad precedent and dangerous precedent you sent. And, okay, well, we had a bad week. Guys went out, COVID, can't play. Sorry. Oh, we're in? Okay, great. Playoffs right around the corner. Give yourself a betting edge. VSiN Pro subscription. The stuff that's up there today. Great trends and numbers. Steve Mackin and I tweeted it out. Cohen on the Thursday night game. NBA and the prop analyzer on fire. NBA and NFL will share a couple coming up. Every best bet, every host, every guest. Nigel with his soccer plays already had a strong weekend. 19 hours of live programming. $9.99. Come on in, join the team, up your betting game, see what we have to offer, VSiN.com/subscribe.
We'll talk fantasy and player props with Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian coming up in about 5 minutes. This is great. Yahoo Fantasy Sports tweeted this out today. The title is Inactive Guy Spent All of His Fab on Isaac Garando for the 49ers. Yeah. So one guy in a league has been inactive the entire year. He's 2-11. They already told him they're kicking him out next season. On waivers day, he spent every single penny. They get $100 every single member. Spent all $100 on Garando, screwing over many of the playoff-seeking teams in the league.
You got to run that by Charch.
I got to bring that up to Charch.
Yeah, that's great.
That is dirty pool, but
kicked out.
Yeah, sure. There's nothing worse than somebody. Oh, well,
ties into the punishment. He has to go to open mic night, try some material.
I know the people who don't pay attention and the people who never respond to trade offers. Yeah. I want him out of the league and never to play ever again. So Paul Charchian on that and who he likes this week and tonight next.
Sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track bet percentages on any matchup. Then uncover the edge by comparing them to the amount of bets placed to find out where the sharp money is headed. Upgrade to VSiN Pro to access betting splits, live odds, line moves, power ratings, and in-depth game analysis. Go to VSiN.com/pro to join VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
All right, what a time of year. We'll go heavy fantasy and player props for this week and tonight. Right now with Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian. The website is guillotineleagues.com. The podcast is called Fantasy Football Weekly, and he is on the Progressive guest line. Good afternoon, Charch. How are you?
Great to talk to you guys again. I missed you over the holiday, but it's great to be back. And I've got one of my favorite props of the year all lined up. I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Okay, so let me, we just talked about this before the break. I got to run this by you. Yahoo Fantasy Sports tweeted this out earlier today. There was an active guy in the league who spent, and every manager gets $100 in fab to spend on free agents. He spent every penny on Isaac Garando for the 49ers. And here's what the person said. So one guy who has been inactive the entire season, he's 2-11. We already told him that we're kicking him out next season. Today, he spent every penny in fab on Garando, and he screwed over many of the playoff-seeking teams in the process. Oh, how dirty is that?
Pretty dirty, but I applaud the team for kicking him out.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest mistake people make in the totality of fantasy football is they let bad, inactive managers stay in the league. What they should have done is strip this guy. Once you tell him he's out for next year, you could have just stripped him out of the league now and found some replacement owner to carry the torch the rest of this year. But they left that guy in. Now, Garendo's going to be, that's a good pickup, actually, I think. I like this kid. And Chicago coming up. Chicago, the way you beat Chicago is on the ground. You don't want to throw at Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, their star cornerbacks. You want to run on them, like last week. Lions runners combined for 228 yards on the Bears. Week before that, Aaron Jones snapped a month-long funk against the Bears. Week before that, Josh Jacobs posted 134 yards against the Bears. And that's where Garando is going to, I think, come in handy. By the way, maybe the fastest running back in the NFL. He's a converted wideout and a track star in college. He ran a 4.33 at the combine, and he's playing running back. So Garendo's going to have a chance at some big gains if he shakes free on any of these snaps. So we've seen him in 2 games where he had to come in and do long bouts of service when Jordan Mason got knocked out early. In those 2 games, he's averaging almost 8 yards a carry. This is gonna be fun to watch, and I think there's a chance that Garendo's gonna be a league winner.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Quickly, what do you think then? If you want to tag it from a player prop standpoint this weekend, would you look at attempts over or yards over?
I'd look at yards over because you only need one play to hit.
Right.
And so I would look at yards, although attempts is extremely safe. They don't have anybody on roster that has any real experience in this. You know what? I might change my answer to attempts. Because Kyle Shanahan's a workhorse guy anyway. And then B, they just added Izzy Abanaconda, just came on board 3 days ago as the backup. So, they don't have anybody that they would really feel comfortable turning to if Garendo's, for whatever reason, they want to spell him or he's not working out or whatever. They're going to have to give him a lot. I don't know those lines, but here's the point at which, just off the top of my head, where I would hit these. If Garendo's over 14, 15 rushes, I'd feel pretty comfortable on the over. And if he's sitting at anything less than about 68 yards, I think I'd be looking at over.
With the playoffs coming up, what advice do you give fantasy players, and how creative do we have to get with all these buys at an unfortunate time?
Yeah, the buys, this is tough. And for many leagues, this is the last week before the playoffs. And hopefully you already have squared away your bye week problems. But if you don't, the team that I've been focusing on for my bye week fill-ins are Tennessee going up against Jacksonville. Got Will Levis as a starter. I like him this week. And I would look the mathematical improbability, guys, of Nikhil Westbrook-Ikine.
Yeah.
So get this. He's averaging 2 catches a game. He's scored in 7 of the last 8. How do you do that on 2 catches?
No kidding.
I mean, it's a total mathematical paradox. It's like the birthday paradox. Are you guys familiar with the birthday paradox?
You same room with someone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard this? So
yeah.
Here's the birthday paradox. It's one of the great mathematical, conundrums.
Yes.
How many people, there are 365 days in a year. How many people need to be in a room together before the mathematical likelihood is that 2 of them have the same birthday?
Yeah.
365 days a year. Do you happen to know, or do you want to hazard a guess?
I've heard this before. Isn't it something weird, like exactly 100 or something like that?
Paulie, you want to take a stab?
I think it's lower than that.
There are 365 days a year. You only need 23 people in the room.
What?
Before you have the mathematical probability that two of them share a birthday.
Wait, so
it's crazy.
You're saying that's like even money, or like minus 105, minus 110?
No, that's like 50.4% likelihood at 23 people getting together in a room that two of them share a birthday. And it's because you're pairing up people. It's not just 1 times 365. You're pairing up the 23rd person with factorial, 23, 22, 21. Yeah, so I'm not a great math mind, but that is one of the great conundrums, like Nikhil Westbrook-Akine scoring
well done
in 7 of 8 games on 2 catches per game.
Damn right. We got there. He's 6-0 to the over, too. I was going to mention that as well with the yards.
Crazy.
So you're all over it here today. How about Bucky Irving? What do we do moving forward? He was like 25-1, the most rushing yards Sunday.
Yeah, unbelievable. Finally, the Buccaneers are like, okay, they've just succumbed to the fact that Bucky Irving is one of the best running backs in the league. They just have to give him the ball. 25 carries last week, 125 yards, 3 receptions, 33 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. The hope is that the 25 carries he got last week is the beginning of a new trend for Bucky Irving, and they're not going to go back to the committee. Not that the other runners have been bad. Sean Tucker's been fine, and Rachaad White has been fine, but Bucky Irving is awesome. Listen, I'm going to give you some of the stats on Bucky Irving. Yards per carry, 4th best in the league. Avoided tackle rate, 4th best in the league. Yards after contact, 2nd best. Efficiency, 4th best. This guy's one of the 5 best talents at running back in the league. And if he's going to keep getting 70% of the carries like he got last week, and that's a big if, and 1-game sample size with him getting all the work, or most of the work, but if that's going to keep happening, he's going to be the difference in championships. He's going to deliver fantasy championships.
Yep.
Yes.
And he absolutely passes the eyeball test, too, on top of everything that you just said. It's Follow the Money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Paul Charchian, our guest, Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, GuillotineLeagues.com. So he's a great rookie. Do you have a strong opinion on who will or who should win Rookie of the Year?
I'm so glad you've asked, because we've touched on this like once a month all season. And I've been talking about Brock Bowers all the time. Like, God, why can't Brock Bowers get any love here? And because he's having by far the best season of any player at his position, even more than Jaden Daniels, who's been very good, and even more than Bo Nix, who's been good as well. But we're talking rewriting record book stuff here. At the pace that Brock Bowers is on, he is going to absolutely shatter the rookie reception record, and it's not by like 30 receptions at his pace. And he's on pace to beat Mike Ditka. Finally, we're going to get a tight end that's going to beat Mike Ditka's rookie yardage record as well. And he's doing it with the quarterbacking that they've got with the Raiders have. He's doing it with, we've even had Desmond Ridder and Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. What Brock Bowers is doing quietly for a team that doesn't get a lot of attention nationally is absolutely worthy of him winning Rookie of the Year. And I'd like to think that those numbers are going to start coming together a little bit, and that maybe there's going to be a groundswell of support if this continues.
Well, here's the problem with that, and I agree he has a great case. Puka Nacua also set a bunch of rookie records last year, and I believe he got 2 first-place votes.
Well, true, but C.J. Stroud also was bananas, right? I mean, he was so good last year.
But we can't forget about how good Daniels has been until he got hurt a couple of weeks ago. Commanders are going to be a playoff team, and the Broncos are going to be a playoff team. I think those 2 things alone will be too much for voters. I'm trying to think about how the voters are going to approach this.
Yeah.
I think they're going to say that's too much and that they can't give it to Bowers.
You're probably, you are probably right. I'm mostly here for the injustice of it all.
Okay.
Well, having said that about Stroud, drop him?
Yeah, from a fantasy standpoint, drop C.J. Stroud outright. He's on bye this week. Then you've got a bunch of tricky matchups. You've got Miami. That's a sneaky good pass defense. Then you got Kansas City, a non-sneaky good pass defense. And then you've got Baltimore in Week 17, which for a long time looked like it was going to be a smash spot. But the Baltimore's really fixed their pass defense over the last month. And you wouldn't just drop Stroud out of spite because he's having a bad year, which he is. But you drop Stroud for any of a series of high-value handcuff players, especially at the running back position, like Justice Hill or Blake Corum or Ray Davis or Khalil Herbert or Zach Charbonnet, or how about this in a twist ending, guys? You drop C.J. Stroud for the sophomore quarterback who's playing better football right now.
Hello.
Bryce Young. How about that?
Yeah.
A bizarro world reversal from last year.
Facts.
Why you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I looked it up, too. He's right about the birthday thing.
Is it 23?
Yeah. I'm not calling you a liar, but I didn't doubt you.
I didn't doubt you. To have it validated because it's bizarre, isn't it?
Isn't that something?
All right, so we're going to get to one of your favorite props of the entire year coming up next, what you told us. And also, trying to find the Green Bay receiver who's going to have a good game is very difficult, but he thinks he's identified the guy who's going to have that good game tonight against the Lions. Find out who Charch thinks it is next.
Got a good thing coming, just wait and see. It's a good.
You spoke, we listened. Introducing the all-new VSiN Watch app. Now, you can watch and listen to VSiN expert analysis live wherever you are. Missed a show? No problem. Catch replays of VSiN's full lineup at any time. View highlights sorted by sport. Or use the search feature to find specific teams and topics you're looking for. And the best part? It's free for a limited time. Download the VSiN Watch app today. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. And join us on the Sports Betting Network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Huge game tonight. Lions 3.5-point favorites at home against the Packers. 10-game winning streak for the Lions. Packers have won 7 out of 8. We continue talking NFL for this week, fantasy and player props with Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian. He's on the Progressive Guest Line. His podcast is called Fantasy Football Weekly. I said before the break, I don't know the answer to this. I could guess, but you never told me who it is. Trying to find the Packers receiver to bet on in a positive way every week is a little bit difficult, but you think that you have the guy tonight. Who is it?
I think so. Jaden Reed, who is the most bankable of the Packers receivers, in part because he's not the one who drops 40% of the passes that come his way. I mean, for Dontavian Wicks, if the ball was a spear, he'd be dead. So, Jaden Reed's the one guy you can trust. He runs in the slot where he gets a favorable matchup against slot cornerback Amik Robertson. And Reed hammered these same Lions in week 9 to the tune of 113 yards. Last week, another slot receiver, primarily running from the slot, Keenan Allen, 2 touchdowns, 73 yards. Everybody else, those Packers receivers, so scattershot. Romeo Doubs, I don't know if he's been formally ruled out yet, but I don't think he's going to go in this one, which helps me feel like that's a couple extra passes. That frees up 5 targets a game. That could help Jaden Reed here. He's over under 61 yards. I think that's fair. I lean over on it. Not an official Paul Charchian recommendation, but Jaden Reed, if you're gonna go one angle on those receivers, that'd be the guy I'd look towards.
What do you want to do with Josh Jacobs, as the Detroit Lions obviously have a ton of guys out on the defense with injuries?
I knew it was bad. I didn't know how bad it was till today when I looked it up. Just the defense on Detroit has 13 players on injured reserve. 13. That's insane.
Yeah.
Most teams haven't had 13 guys all season across offense, defense, and special teams. It is nuts. And you wonder if Detroit is finally just going to the totality of all of these missing players is just going to catch up with them here in this game. And maybe that would be good for Josh Jacobs, or maybe not. Here's where I'm worried. Here's my concern on Jacobs, right? He's off the injury report right now, but he keeps getting on the injury report. In the last month, he has had quad, calf, and ankle injuries. Matt LaFleur keeps saying, we got to give him fewer carries, and then the game comes around, and he keeps giving him 22 carries. It feels like Jacobs is due for a rest game with maybe like half his normal volume, and they've been giving a few extra looks at Chris Brooks, the backup. He might get more time here. But also, Detroit is just a great run defense that doesn't see many rushes at all. Just 21 per game. That's the fewest in the entire NFL. But also, they're really good, as I mentioned. Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift. 4 good running backs that they have faced in the last 4 games. They averaged 36 rushing yards. Wow. That's it. So I think there's a couple of ways that Josh Jacobs could be in a tricky spot. Again, the defense, though, and why I wouldn't bet Josh Jacobs either way, the defense so banged up, it could be that they just run right through, a battered defense. So I wouldn't touch it, but there's some downside with Jacobs that I don't think you would get just looking at his great box scores from the last month.
How big are the Jones fumbles in Minnesota? And what do we do with them? Yeah.
They're big. And that's some reason for caution on Aaron Jones. Now, he's had 6 fumbles this year. He's lost half of those. And what the really killer is, they're in the red zone. They're at the goal line.
Yeah.
And last week, Jones had 2 fumbles. The second fumble, he didn't play for a quarter. I mean, that doesn't happen. So that was a benching right there. So, one more fumble from Jones, benching could be in play. But also, Atlanta is a really good defense. And this brings us to our first prop of the day, our official first prop. We're going to go Aaron Jones under here. Listen to this Atlanta sneaky good defense over the last month of games. No runner has topped 59 yards. Opposing runners are averaging 3.7 yards per carry, 7th best in the league over the last month. They rank 9th in defensive rush EPA, 9th in yards before contact, 11th in yards after contact. This is a good Atlanta sneaky good run defense. Jones has been under his line today. 65.5 is your rushing line on Aaron Jones. He's been under that in 4 of the last 6 games. And over those 6 games, he's averaging just 3.8 yards per carry. The first 6 games of the season, Aaron Jones was 5.2 yards per carry. The efficiency's dropped by 50%. So I roll all that together. I don't like Aaron Jones here. I'd look at the under 65.5 rushing yards.
All right. Very good breakdown. Follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest is Paul Charchian. The website is guillotineleagues.com. He's on the progressive guest line. So we've talked about 2 running backs so far that might be league winners, right? Isaac Arando for the 49ers, who knows? Bucky Irving, certainly a possibility with the Buccaneers. How about the managers who drafted Isaiah Pacheco this year for the Chiefs and held on to him, and now he's back finally? His prospects in this game against the Chargers Sunday night and then moving forward.
Love it. I am all over Isaiah Pacheco because there is a widespread misunderstanding about about the backfield for Kansas City. People think it's a timeshare. It's not. This thing, the 1 week timeshare from last week is over. Last week, Andy Reid said going into last week's game that Isaiah Pacheco was on a roughly 20 play snap count. Reid has made no such declaration here. And key things to understand: Kareem Hunt's awful, and Pacheco's great. Here's some key Kareem Hunt stats for you. Of the 32 runners with 100 carries this year, Hunt ranks 31st out of 32 in yards per carry, 31st out of 32 in avoided tackle rate. He has been bad. Pacheco, meanwhile, only 7 carries last week, same as Hunt. Looks like he shot out of a cannon. Averaged 6 yards per carry last week. Hunt averaged 2. So we're going to hit the over on the rushing yards for Isaiah Pacheco against the Chargers. The over on rushing attempts, 12.5. And let me give you a little intel on the Chargers, which is a good run defense, and it might cause some hesitancy. But listen to the last 3 opponents to face the Chargers. They've gone workhorse back, and it's worked. 3 weeks ago, Chase Brown, 27 touches, 143 combo yards. 2 weeks ago against the Chargers. 2 weeks ago against the Chargers. Derrick Henry, 24 rushes, 140 yards. Last week, Bijan Robinson, 32 touches, 135 combo yards. Workhorse backs are pummeling the Chargers. Isaiah Pacheco is going to convert to a workhorse back this weekend.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
So you want to go attempts and yards over?
I want to go attempts and rushing yards over. I would consider alternate lines. This thing, I feel as strongly about this as most anything that we've talked about this year. I really think that people are misunderstanding this as being a timeshare backfield. It is not going to be.
Will he be used in the passing game as well? Would you want to look at maybe receiving yards over or rushing and receiving yards combined?
That is a great question, and I looked at that, and we only got the 2-game sample with Pacheco at the beginning of the year, and his passing numbers are way up. And I don't have them in front of me, but it was something in the ballpark of like 3 catches, 30 yards, 5 catches, 30 yards, something like that in the 2 games. And so the combined, the combo total is good too. Now the Chargers, the only reason I didn't roll that in, Chargers have been quite good at stopping opposing running backs through the air. So I didn't decide to follow up on that angle, but to me, that's still in play as well.
Paulie and I are both big fans of Cade Otton, tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It didn't work out last week. That was more of a Mike Evans game. Boy, Mike Evans, he's going to go down as one of the best receivers of all time and so wildly underrated, in my opinion.
You might want to double him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Stupid.
What do you want to do with Cade Otton? Does he bounce back this week?
Yeah. Now, this is the 4th time we've brought up Cade Otton during these segments. We previously we went over and under, and we've hit on all 3. He's coming back off back-to-back. He's coming off back-to-back dud games, and a lot of people are falsely attributing that to the return of Mike Evans. But the thing is, those two really don't affect each other at all. Since Evans has returned, Cade Otton's snaps and routes run have not changed. And most importantly, and why we love Cade Otton over 44.5 receiving yards, Las Vegas is the worst tight end defense in the league, and it's shocking how bad they are. Here we go. Over the past 5 weeks, the Raiders are allowing 103 yards per game to tight ends, worst in the league by a mile. And if you don't know relative, like what is 103 yards to tight ends, just trust me, it's insanely bad. The league average is 54 per game. They're at 103. The second worst team over the last 5 weeks is at 81 tight end yards allowed. And again, Raiders at 103. Last week, Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, 136 combined yards. Week before that, the Raiders played Denver. That was a team without a tight end. The week before that, Jonnu Smith, 101 and 2 touchdowns. Week before that, Mike Gesicki, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Week before that, Kelce and Gray again, 113 yards and a touchdown. So we're like in a historic run of tight end ineptitude by the Raiders. Here comes Cade Otton over. This is glorious.
What an appearance.
I don't know what his 2 touchdown is, but I'd look at that as well.
All
that
right.
might be in play.
We'll do some digging.
According to some research from the guys behind the glass, the birthday paradox, when there are 70 people in a room, the probability of two of the same birthdays is 99.9%.
At 70, that's amazing work. Good job, guys behind the glass.
Incredible.
That's
A+, Charge.
Yeah, fantastic appearance as always, my man. Thank you so much.
A lot of fun. Thank you, friends.
Yep. Be good. Have a strong weekend, too. There you go. Paul Charchian, Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, GuillotineLeagues.com.
There's your ladder.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Hello. I'm going to climb the ladder during the break. We'll get best bets in soccer with the meat man,
Yes.
Steve Wiss, coming up next here on VSiN.
With the...
Join us on a numbers game where Gil Alexander takes you on an informative and entertaining ride. Focus